There comes a moment in a woman's life when her silence speaks louder than any relationship she has ever pursued, when her absence from intimacy and companionship is not a sign of weakness or bitterness, but a profound testament to a journey inward, a conscious choice to step away from the constant giving of herself to others in order to reclaim the pieces of her soul that were scattered, overlooked, or diminished by the expectations of a world that has always measured her worth by her connection to someone else, as if being alone were the same as being incomplete. In choosing to live without a man, without the distraction or comfort of sex, without the temporary warmth that so many mistake for love, she is engaging in a process of self-realization so deep and so radical that it overturns the conventional understanding of what it means for a woman to exist fully, unapologetically, and without compromise. Carl Jung described the path of individuation as the conscious awakening of the self, a journey through shadow and light, and in this deliberate solitude, she is facing not just the absence of others but the fullness of her own being, discovering the hidden reservoirs of strength, clarity, and emotional sovereignty that were always within her, yet required the quiet of her own company to emerge fully. She is not escaping love or intimacy. She is redefining it. She is not closing herself off to desire. She is elevating it, transforming it into a conscious awareness that seeks depth, reciprocity, and integrity rather than distraction, validation, or momentary pleasure. She has learned that the world will always question her choices, that whispers will follow her, that assumptions will attempt to define her absence as failure, loneliness, or emotional damage disguised as independence. Yet none of these labels touch the truth of her journey. Her solitude is not a retreat from life. It is an act of devotion to herself, a preservation of her inner landscape that has been cultivated through years of reflection, disappointment, and careful discernment. In a society obsessed with appearances, with relationships measured in milestones and social validation, she refuses to bend, to compromise the essence of her being, for the fleeting comfort of being with someone who cannot see her depth or honor her growth. Each refusal, each moment of standing alone, is not a rejection of intimacy, but a declaration that she will no longer participate in transactions that diminish her soul. She recognizes the difference between presence and performance, between love that liberates and love that consumes, and she has chosen to align herself only with what nurtures the wholeness she has painstakingly assembled from fragments of past wounds, shadows faced, and truths embraced. Her emotional sovereignty is not aggression, it is clarity. It does not demand applause. It radiates quietly yet powerfully, shifting energies in ways subtle but undeniable. The world may call her cold, difficult, or unreachable, yet she smiles with an irony born of deep understanding, knowing that her path, though lonely in appearance, is a sanctuary where she meets herself fully and without compromise, discovering in that stillness the rare and uncompromising power of self-love. Her mornings are no longer spent in pursuit of approval or external validation. She awakens to the rhythm of her own presence, tending to the quiet sanctuary she has built within herself. Every choice she makes, every boundary she sets, is a reflection of a life reclaimed from compromise. She has discovered that intimacy without self-possession is hollow, and so she has chosen solitude as a teacher, a mirror, and a protector. In her aloneness, she has confronted the shadows of her childhood, the echoes of expectations, and the ghosts of relationships that once demanded more of her than she could give. She has felt the ache of unreciprocated love, the frustration of giving pieces of herself to those unprepared to receive them, and yet she has transformed that ache into awareness. Her self-possession is not pride, it is integrity. She does not seek to dominate or control, nor does she wait to be rescued or completed. Instead, she cultivates a presence so steady, so unshakable, that it becomes a subtle revolution in itself. The energy she radiates attracts only those willing to meet her on the same level, those capable of sustaining a connection without diminishing either soul. She no longer participates in relationships as a compromise, nor does she mistake desire for fulfillment. She understands that true love, whether shared or awaited, begins with a depth of self-recognition, a courage to face one's own shadow, and the willingness to honor one's own wholeness above all else. And in this quiet, deliberate life, she has become more than independent. She has become sovereign. The world around her often misunderstands this form of freedom. People mistake her calm confidence for coldness, her discernment for pride, and her boundaries for arrogance. Yet she remains unmoved because she knows the difference between being accessible and being available to those who matter. She no longer seeks validation through fleeting attention or superficial affection. Her life is a careful cultivation of meaning, depth, and emotional sovereignty. Every interaction is measured not by the desire to please, but by the willingness to honor herself and others in equal measure. She recognizes that intimacy is not about possession, dependency, or filling a void, but about shared growth, mutual respect, and the courage to stand fully seen. She has walked through the fire of disappointment and emerged tempered, no longer desperate to mend others at the cost of her own wholeness. Her solitude is not emptiness. It is a sacred space, fertile ground for self-discovery, reflection, and renewal. In choosing herself, she has redefined love. It is not a surrender, but an offering, not a demand, but a resonance. Those who approach her with anything less than authenticity are gently but firmly turned away. In her quiet insistence on truth, she becomes a mirror for others to see themselves honestly, and a subtle reminder that emotional freedom is attainable, but only when one refuses to compromise the integrity of the soul. And so she continues, alone yet unbroken, aware that her solitude is not the absence of life, but the presence of all that she has reclaimed. Her journey is not a rebellion against connection, but a profound commitment to self-respect. She understands that being alone is not a punishment nor a failure, but a declaration that her life will not be defined by the expectations or limitations of others. Every choice she makes, every boundary she upholds, is a testament to the years spent learning the cost of compromise and the value of her own presence. She does not settle for empty gestures or conditional affection. She seeks relationships that honor her growth, that align with the depth of her awareness, and that expand rather than diminish her essence. There is a quiet power in her refusal to shrink herself for the comfort of others, a power that unsettles those accustomed to control, those who fear authenticity and independence. Yet this power is not aggressive. It is serene, deliberate, and rooted in clarity. Her solitude allows her to witness life fully, unfiltered by distraction, unburdened by obligation, and untainted by the compromises that often masquerade as love. In this space, she cultivates patience, self-compassion, and the courage to wait for what genuinely resonates with her soul. And in doing so, she demonstrates an archetype rarely celebrated: the woman who chooses herself, who treasures her wholeness, and who navigates the world not in search of completion, but in the fullness of her own being. To those willing to understand, she is not alone. She is alive, awake, and luminous. She moves through the world with a quiet confidence that doesn't demand recognition, but naturally commands respect. Her presence is subtle yet undeniable, like a deep river flowing beneath a calm surface, steady, powerful, and impossible to ignore. She no longer fears silence because it has become her sanctuary, a space where she can hear herself think, reflect, and grow. The society that measures women by relationships or appearances often misunderstands her, labeling her as cold, distant, or unapproachable. But they fail to see the truth. She has chosen depth over distraction, self-respect over approval, and authenticity over convenience. Every time she says no, it is not defiance. It is integrity. Every boundary she sets is a lesson in self-preservation. She has learned that love cannot be rushed, coerced, or borrowed. It must arise naturally, freely, and from a place of mutual growth. Her decision to live alone without a man, without the compromises of fleeting passion or superficial attachment, is not born from bitterness, fear, or pride. It is born from wisdom, a wisdom that understands the power of being fully present with oneself before sharing presence with another. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty. A woman who walks alone is not lost but awake. She has cultivated a life where absence does not signify emptiness, but abundance, and where waiting is not a burden, but an art form. She is a mirror for others, reflecting the potential of freedom, maturity, and self-love that can only be found within. Her solitude is not an absence, but a deliberate act of creation. Each day she spends alone is a day invested in understanding herself more deeply, in peeling back layers that once hid her fears, insecurities, and unmet desires. The world, obsessed with constant connection and validation, often cannot grasp the courage it takes to choose one's own company over fleeting approval. She doesn't seek distraction to fill the quiet. She embraces it, knowing that in the stillness she meets her true self. Her past relationships, once mirrors of compromise and compromise-driven pain, have become lessons etched into her essence. She no longer runs from discomfort but moves through it with grace, recognizing that real strength comes from facing the shadows she once ignored. And so, when she steps into a room, she carries a presence that is unmistakably whole. People notice, not because she demands attention, but because wholeness radiates naturally. She has learned that true love, when it comes, will not demand her to shrink, dim, or sacrifice her essence. Until that day arrives, she walks her path alone, not in loneliness, but in alignment with herself. This is the awakening Carl Jung spoke of. The individuation process, where one confronts the shadow, integrates it, and emerges more fully realized. The woman who lives alone without a man or sex is not lacking anything. She is abundant in ways the world often overlooks. Her life is a testament to the power of self-possession, to the beauty of choosing presence over dependency, depth over fleeting pleasure, and awareness over the superficial. She understands that being alone is not a punishment, nor a sign of failure. It is a declaration, a commitment to herself and to the life she refuses to dilute for others. Each day spent in her own company strengthens her emotional clarity, sharpens her intuition, and builds a resilience few ever witness. While society pressures women to conform, to define themselves through relationships, she quietly rejects those scripts. She does not rush into love or compromise her standards for fleeting comfort. Instead, she cultivates a deep connection with her inner world, learning to hold her own presence as enough. In this sacred solitude, she confronts memories she once avoided, childhood wounds, inherited fears, and attachments that masqueraded as love. These confrontations are not easy, they are battles of the soul, but she endures them, and each victory integrates into her sense of self. People often mistake her independence for arrogance or coldness, failing to see the courage required to love herself fully. She knows that superficial attention, empty words, or conditional affection cannot satisfy the depth she seeks. True intimacy, she understands, must honor her completeness, not attempt to fill a void that no longer exists. She has discovered that life lived authentically, even in solitude, is richer, freer, and infinitely more empowering than life dictated by fear, expectation, or dependency. The woman who lives alone without a man or sex is a living archetype of strength, presence, and sovereignty. Her path is her own, her choices intentional, and her freedom absolute. Her solitude is not emptiness, it is fertile ground for growth. In choosing herself over temporary attachments, she discovers a freedom that unsettles those conditioned to define worth, through companionship. She walks through life with quiet confidence, a presence that radiates without demanding attention. Every decision she makes reflects awareness, not reaction. Every boundary she sets reflects self-respect, not fear. To be with her, one must first meet her on the level of truth, presence, and authenticity. The world may call her difficult or unreachable, but she understands that true love cannot coexist with compromise that diminishes the soul. She has learned that emotional sovereignty requires patience and discernment, and she no longer settles for anything less. Through years of introspection, she has met the darkest corners of her psyche, faced fears inherited from generations, and transformed pain into wisdom. This transformation is not performed for validation. It is lived quietly, profoundly, and entirely on her own terms. She recognizes that love is not a transaction or a performance. It is an alignment, a resonance between two whole beings who choose to share presence without losing themselves. Those who cannot honor this depth may drift away, but she does not grieve absence. She celebrates clarity. By living authentically, she becomes a mirror, reflecting the possibilities of emotional maturity and independence. Her existence challenges the world to reconsider what it means to be complete, to love fully, and to honor oneself. She is a woman who thrives in solitude, not because she has given up on connection, but because she has never given up on herself. She moves through the world with a calm awareness, a presence that speaks louder than any words. Every choice she makes, every step she takes, is guided by an inner compass tuned to her own truth. She has unlearned the habits of seeking validation from others and replaced them with the discipline of self-recognition. Her solitude is not emptiness, it is a sanctuary where she nurtures her own growth, explores the depths of her consciousness, and refines her understanding of love, not as a need to be filled, but as a capacity to overflow. In this quiet mastery of herself, she becomes a mirror for others. People are drawn to her authenticity, yet often unsettled by it. Men who are accustomed to control or emotional dependency feel confused, and women who have yet to awaken to their own power may feel judged. She does not intend to intimidate, she simply refuses to shrink. Her life is a testament to the fact that independence is not loneliness, and strength does not require companionship. Every refusal she makes is an act of preservation, not denial. Every no she speaks is an affirmation of her worth. She waits for love that matches her awareness, love that respects her boundaries, love that encourages her growth without attempting to limit it. And until that love arrives, she continues her journey alone, confident that her wholeness cannot be given, it can only be claimed. Her solitude is a choice, her presence a gift, and her life a quiet revolution. She has learned to distinguish between presence and performance, between empty words and true connection. Her intuition acts as a filter, instantly revealing what lacks depth or authenticity. She no longer wastes her energy on relationships built on fear, need, or superficial charm. Each interaction is measured not by desire to impress, but by the resonance it creates within her own being. She seeks reciprocity, not possession, understanding, not illusion. Her past has taught her the value of boundaries, the necessity of silence, and the transformative power of reflection. She has faced heartbreak, rejection, and the subtle erosions of compromise, and in doing so she has reclaimed herself. Every scar is now a map, guiding her toward choices aligned with her soul rather than societal expectation. She understands that real love is not about filling voids, but about walking together as two complete beings, each bringing fullness to the other without diminishing themselves. To the outside world, she may appear unapproachable or indifferent, but her stillness is not detachment. It is discernment. She knows that surrendering to presence requires courage, and she reserves that surrender for those who honor it. Her life is a lesson in integrity, a demonstration that true freedom comes not from rejection of others, but from embracing oneself fully. And in her quiet defiance of cultural norms, she inspires others to ask, what does it mean to truly be whole, to truly be free? She walks through the world with a silent authority, a presence that commands attention without demanding it. Her solitude is not emptiness, it is a sanctuary where her mind, heart, and spirit are allowed to expand freely. She does not seek validation from others because she has cultivated a deep internal approval, one that no external voice can diminish. Every choice she makes is intentional, every action aligned with her own principles rather than society's expectations. Her independence is not rebellion, it is wisdom. She has seen the consequences of surrendering too quickly, of bending to fit someone else's narrative. Now she moves deliberately, understanding that the most profound connections come from those who meet her on the same plane of authenticity. She does not settle for fleeting pleasure, shallow conversation, or conditional affection. She wants substance, depth, and truth. This woman is a mirror. She reflects back the insecurities, dependencies, and unhealed wounds of those around her. Many feel discomfort in her presence, not because she threatens them directly, but because she embodies a freedom they have not yet found. And yet, she does not aim to provoke. She simply exists. Her life is a testament to the power of self-possession, to the beauty of choosing oneself before anyone else. Those who understand her are inspired, those who do not are challenged. Either way, she remains unwavering, loyal to the one person who truly matters, herself. And in that quiet space, she begins to notice the subtle rhythms of her own existence. Every decision, every pause, every breath becomes a testament to the life she has chosen for herself. The world outside may not understand, may still try to push her toward traditional paths, but she has learned that the only validation she needs is the one she grants herself. Solitude is not emptiness. It is the crucible in which her strength was forged, the laboratory where her soul experimented with freedom, and the sanctuary where her essence can breathe without restraint. She moves through life with a kind of grace that is neither loud nor performative. There is a magnetism in her presence, not because she seeks attention, but because she embodies a truth that resonates silently with those who are ready to witness it. She has faced disappointment, endured heartache, and confronted shadows that many never dare to acknowledge. And through it all, she has emerged whole. There is a fierce clarity in her choices, a refusal to dilute her essence for the comfort of others. This woman is an archetype of emotional sovereignty. She does not define herself through others' expectations. She does not need to be rescued or guided. Her relationships, if and when they come, will be partnerships of equals, spaces where mutual respect, depth, and presence thrive. And until such connections appear, she walks alone, not in loneliness, but in profound self-possession. In walking her path alone, she discovers the true dimensions of her own spirit. There is a freedom in not seeking approval, in not bending to fit someone else's vision of what she should be. Every choice she makes reinforces her understanding that self-respect is not negotiable, and that love, real love, never requires surrendering your own identity. She has learned to recognize empty promises and shallow gestures, to distinguish presence from performance. And in doing so, she has created a life that prioritizes depth over distraction, authenticity over convenience. Her solitude is not a punishment, nor a gap to be filled. It is a fertile ground where her awareness grows. She listens to her own intuition, trusts her own judgment, and honors the rhythm of her own needs. People may misinterpret her independence as pride, arrogance, or coldness, but they fail to see that what they perceive as distance is actually the boundary that preserves her wholeness. In this space, she learns to nourish her own spirit, to find fulfillment within, rather than chasing it externally. And perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of her journey is that she does not just survive alone. She thrives. She moves through the world with a quiet authority, demonstrating that the absence of dependency is not weakness, but mastery. She shows that one can be fully alive, fully present, and fully whole without relying on anyone else to validate, protect, or define them. This woman has become a living embodiment of the truth Carl Jung spoke of. That true individuation comes from embracing one's own depth, shadow, and light. Her journey of solitude is not just personal, it is archetypal. By choosing herself over empty companionship, she redefines what it means to love, to exist, and to flourish. She has come to understand that love that constrains, that asks for compromise of the soul, is not love at all. The love she seeks, the love she allows, is one that celebrates wholeness, one that honors individuality, one that encourages growth without diminishing the self. Every day she practices patience, not as waiting for someone to arrive, but as a reverent acknowledgement of her own evolution. She has faced her shadows, acknowledged her wounds, and allowed them to become teachers rather than chains. In embracing the silence of her own presence, she discovers an inner strength few ever witness, a clarity that allows her to navigate the world without compromise. She does not need to prove herself, impress anyone, or fill the expectations society imposes. She simply is, and that presence, quiet yet unshakable, becomes magnetic to those who understand its depth. This is the woman who lives alone without a man or casual connection, whole, sovereign, aware, and unafraid. Her independence is not rebellion, it is revelation. It is a demonstration that life can be rich, complete, and meaningful without succumbing to pressures or conventions. And through her story, a quiet revolution unfolds. For those touched by this journey, there is an invitation to reflect, awaken, and honor their own path. For more insights like this and stories that resonate with your soul, subscribe and stay connected with SYC Soul.